Let me ask you a question, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. Think about this. When was the last time you had a peaceful, grounded conversation with someone who completely disagreed with you? No debate, not a shouting match, not you waiting for them to take a breath so you could prove that you're smarter. Just conversation. If it's been a while, you know you're not alone. Somewhere along the way, disagreement has become disrespect. Questions become attacks, and anger has become a highly optimized business model. The uncomfortable truth is this: somebody benefits from keeping you in a state of constant division. Your nervous system is being monetized. Your outrage has become somebody else's revenue stream. While you're losing friends, cutting off family members, someone else is literally getting rich off of your anger. So today on Jay's Corner, we're exposing the outrage economy. We're going to talk about why anger is addictive, who profits from it, and most importantly, how we take back control of our minds. Make no mistake, if we don't learn how to be allies, we're going to burn our own houses down just to prove that, hey, I'm right. So welcome to the show. Let's jump right into it. All right. So again, welcome back to Jay's Corner. I'm your host, Coach Jay. Again, as always, man, I want to thank you guys for your support. I want to thank you for all the comments, the likes, the shares, and more important, man, the inboxes, the nuanced conversations, and even those who have jumped out and expressed interest in being a guest on this podcast with some of the topics that they feel will fall in line with the themes and concepts here of Jay's Corner. And so, man, I cannot thank you enough. If you're watching this, be sure that you hit that subscribe button to Jay's Corner. Make sure you like, follow, share. Believe it or not, man, you could do that for free, but it goes a long way in helping your boy and continue to bring great content like this. And so I'm out there on all social media platforms. If you find me on one, the information is in the details. You can find me on all the rest of them, man. But I really would appreciate the opportunity if you guys go subscribe to my channel. Man, the more that we grow this actual community, the bigger and better things that I can do to make sure that I'm consistent and I'm accountable and bring you guys quality information. So big shout out on that. Let's just jump into our actual topic here today. You're being played how the outrage community is destroying our relationships. You're being played fake outrage, social media, but what I'm going to tap into is not only just social media, it's highly prevalent there. But sometimes we even bring these bad traits back to just face-to-face conversation. So I want to welcome you guys to the show. As you guys always know, I have everything broken down into segments. So that first key that we're going to try to digest into is the business of being angry, right? Now, there used to be a point in time where we viewed anger as just an emotion. A natural human response when a boundary was crossed. Unfortunately, today, though, anger is a whole industry. It is a meticulously crafted machine designed to create what we call in the coaching world amygdala hijack. And we'll talk about it a little bit more later. But think about how you consume information, right? Social media algorithms aren't designed to make you smarter, and they certainly aren't designed to make you happy. The reality is they're designed to trigger your fight or flight response because a triggered brain is a captive brain. So what keeps human beings from scrolling? Just continue to scroll. Conflict, fear, and outrage. See, we get so frustrated when we see extreme polarization, but we forget one fundamental rule of the internet. The algorithm doesn't reward truth. It rewards reaction. It doesn't care if the story is accurate. It only cares if it made your blood pressure spike enough to hit the share, to get that reactive mindset instead of an active mindset. Take an example and look at our news cycles, right? Look at the influencers that we call influencers these days, but look at the political commentators who build massive platforms, not by building bridges, but by pointing the fingers. They sell to us on a daily diet of how terrible, how stupid, how evil the other side is. And if we're not careful, we will formulate in that and we'll have to choose a side when there's no sides to pick. But I want you to hear this, though. The loudest voice isn't always the wisest voice. It's just usually the most profitable. And if we're really truthful, a lot of times it's the wrong voice that we should actually be listening to. Now, what I want to do, I want to ask you guys a question. I want to pause right now and ask you guys a question and drop your responses in the comment section. I guarantee you, I may not respond to them right then and there. You guys, I got a lot going on that I'm going to share with y'all later, but I want to hear from you, right? I know in this setting, it sounds like a monologue and I'm just kind of adding you guys with a lot of information, but man, let's have the ongoing conversation wherever you're viewing this podcast at. Man, drop it in the comments. But I want you to pause right now and I want you to think about this. What is one topic or headline that consistently make your blood boil when you scrolling? Like you just can't stand it. You feel yourself. Something just whatever it is, almost like an out of body experience. And so what's that one topic, that one headline currently that consistently when it comes across your face, your eyes, or whatever, it just boils your blood when you're scrolling? Think about that. Now I want you to ask yourself, who is cashing a check off that exact reaction from you? Who's literally getting paid in any capacity based off of your response to how you feel about that action? So drop it in the comments, drop your response in the comments. I'm interested in seeing, we have a lot of the same, if there's nuance, but we gotta let's start exposing the machine together of what's behind this. Now, I want to transition into a segue called "When Your Identity Becomes Your Argument." And I think a lot of people, man, in this day and age of misinterpreting freedom of speech, I can say what I want. In this day and age where if I feel it, it has to be right. I think there's a lot of people don't understand that it is detrimental when your identity becomes your argument, right? So if we know the system is rigged to make us mad, feel a certain type of way, you even see certain buttons, love, like, care, what's sad, angry. Like if we know the system is rigged to make real human emotions to force us to regulate it down into just a simple button, reactionary button to push. If we know how rigged that system is, ask yourself the question, why do we keep taking the bait? And we've all been guilty. I mean, for the most part, almost everybody's on social media. We see some love, right? Think about love. We see some angry, like, care. These human emotions that are typically meant to be expressed in real time has been regulated into a button to be reactionary. Why do we keep taking the bait? You know why? Because it taps into our ego, ladies and gentlemen. Over the last decade, a dangerous psychological shift has happened. We have attached our core identity to being right. Who we are has become synonymous with being right. See, it used to be, this is my opinion, or I hold this opinion, this is what I believe. But now it's I am this opinion. And I want you to really think about that. Remember when I asked the question from the beginning, when is the last time that you had a conversation with someone you disagree with? That's a beginning, middle, and the end. Not a conversation that ended in an argument or ended up in a greater disagreement. And I think that is something that we need to step back and really be transparent, to look in that proverbial mirror, so to speak. Is it that we no longer have an opinion, and it is now the mindset that I am the opinion? Because if I have an opinion, I was just talking, shout out to my frat brother and Masonic brother, Pat Briscoe, man. I was just talking to him about this. Some people can have an opinion. So if I come along and I disagree with that opinion, the conversation stays about the opinion. It never gets personal because I don't identify as the opinion. This is just what my belief is, which that is the most emotionally intelligent way in which conversations, especially when you're talking about agree to disagree, should go. When you have an opinion, then I can critique that. I can disagree with that, even if I want to debate that, but it never comes to the chest and becomes personal because I understand at the end of the day, hey, you may think this, I may think this. Either we come together and may have some shared beliefs and we can convince each other either way, or worst case scenario, I can agree to disagree, but it never gets personal. And that's why it's a challenge these days with some where they cannot have the conversation of true disagreement without further negativity coming into place. Because on the flip side, if I am this opinion, then guess what? To disagree, to debate, to critique the opinion, if I am this opinion, doing all those things mean you're doing it to me. So now what happens, the opinion is sat in the corner and being held hostage as an excuse for me to now react and retaliate to what I feel is now you're saying this about and to me, not the opinion. And so now that's why you see certain reactions to where, hey, you can't have the conversation, drop it. Now people are mad. Now people are arguing, yelling, cursing, because we're no longer talking about something that is detached to where I can still be respectful of you and you can be respectful of me. But hey, we're just discussing these things. Just like if I'm at a car show and you like that Porsche and I like that Lamborghini. And we're not going to sit here and curse and argue because we have a different taste, but we're just going to be able to point out the features. If we agree to disagree, then that's fine. We move on and look at something else. But now the conversation becomes a hostage. And so it's very important to understand the mindset when it comes to ask yourself, can you hold an opinion? And are you holding opinions, which everyone has a right to do so, right? Or have you become the opinion to where if there's any nuance or any conversation of having that conversation about that opinion with someone else, that you can't separate the constructive criticism and or the difference of opinion because you identify as the opinion within itself. Now, turning my attention to kind of putting my coaching hat on, right? As a certified master life coach, we always talk about a term called ego establishment. This is when your identity is glued to your beliefs. Any challenge to that belief doesn't feel like a conversation. It feels like a threat to your actual existence. So your beliefs and your identity is so meshed together that one cannot coexist without the other defending it. So it's almost like fight or flee. There's no nuance. They're so closely aligned. It's more of a reactionary mindset than it is a proactive mindset. And so this is where conversation no longer, like I said, again, feels like a backward and forward where you're reciprocating. Of course, you have a listener and a receiver. You have a talker and you have someone that's quiet. Like it's no longer a reciprocated process. It's more like this is a threat to me and who I am and who you think I am. So it becomes more of a true threat. And that's important to understand. And that's why you see the maliciousness sometimes come out, the cursing, the arguing, or the defense mechanism, because it is, to some people, it does come across as a threat. So what happens is admitting you were wrong feels like a debt to the self. All right. For me to admit that I'm wrong, it's like I have to, it's almost like taking a conversation from just a nuanced conversation to win or loss. Like end all be all, like either you're gonna live or die conceptually if you don't prove this point. And what I'm trying to do, and I hope you appreciate this, I'm taking you into the mindset, right? Because I know a lot of time when we hear things, especially explain out the fact, like, no, it's not that serious. And that's why I asked the question in the beginning. When was the last time you had a conversation with someone who you disagreed with? Were you guys able to complete that conversation and get up the same way, if not better, after the conversation? Or was there some interruption? Did you complete the conversation? Or was there some animosity after that conversation? And so that's why I'm painting these pictures here as such. So what happens when we feel like it's the death of self, what we do, there's no more listening. There's no more nuance. Anything you say is an attack. So guess what? We double down. Because now it's all about defense. It's all about standing my ground. And you can be speaking clear English. If I hear a word or point, matter of fact, like I said earlier, I'm just waiting for you to pause so I can jump in and tell you how I feel, because you done attack me. Because I've become my opinion. I no longer emotionally intelligent to have an opinion. No, I've become the opinion. So now the conversation lends itself more about I'm finna defend, I'm finna attack, and I'm not actively listening anymore. I'm passively listening to where I just have an outlet and I just hear where you just take a breath and I'm going to jump in and give you a piece of my mind. So we have to understand, when we get to the point where we confuse conviction with arrogance. So a lot of times, this is what I believe, and this is why I say there's a manipulation of freedom of speech. I can think what I feel. Well, yeah, but you can, but there's also a cost to anything we do, say, or believe. That's just how the world is. And so a lot of times you'll find that some will try to confuse and hide conviction and arrogance. No, I know what I mean. I did this. And that's when you'll start hearing people naming their accolades, the things they've done, because now I'm on the witness stand and I want to prove this, instead of what's really triggering is that I'm feeling like I'm losing. And if I just be transparent with myself, I may have to admit that I'm wrong. But that admitting I'm wrong, that conviction feels like I said, fear. Feel like death of a thousand eyes, low emotional intelligence. So that feeling inside, I'm gonna have to defend it as if you're taking my worthiness, my worthfulness away from me. You're saying something about me. You're saying I don't know that, and I've been doing that for X amount of years. Like, you're saying something about me because I've done this. So whereas that regular conviction came in to even get the person to pause to just think differently. Well, let me think about what you said. Well, she made a good point. Okay, I can still hold my opinion, but let me just move it over a little bit and let me entertain that and listen a little bit more in the conversation. That beginning of conviction is replaced with arrogance. So we double down. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, let me give you my litany of resumes, of credentials, and whatnot on why I'm right. Because I want to counter what you're saying. And that's why a lot of conversations, when it's all said and done, why I say is that it's the outrage economy. Right? Instead of having that nuanced and civil conversation, we use that term fake outrage. And it's like that fake outrage is manufactured. It's definitely good for the social media world, but then it also is good for the misguided ego and pride that we walk around here believing ourselves and then throwing in people's face. So conviction says, I believe this deeply. This is my opinion, but I have the emotional maturity to also listen to something that may not line up or someone who doesn't agree with this. That's what conviction says. Arrogance says, I already know everything, right? This is me. This is not me just believing. I'm saying it's my opinion, but no, my opinion has become me. So I already know everything, and you are the idiot for not seeing it my way. So there is no nuance. There is nothing you can tell me about this because I now have identified my self-worthiness, my value system, who I am as this being. And that's why it's hard today, if you notice, when it's like facts don't matter anymore, right? It's like if I choose, I can say I feel not to choose to recognize the fact. And it's almost like in today's society, in certain places, it belittles the fact. It's like, that ain't even about what we think or feel. That's a fact, right? And so that's why we have to understand the different nuances between the conviction and arrogance. And hey, let me say this. This is not just about casting dispersions on, your family, your friends, and things of that sort. Because unfortunately, what I've learned, and I'm going to talk about this later on, some people you just can't change. Right? Got a horse to a water, but you can't make him drink. Hopefully this information is edifying to where we can kind of take a self-evaluation of ourselves to those who want to get up and improve our emotional intelligence just because it's who we're trying to aspire to be. Really look at that. When I feel that conviction, is that conviction or is that arrogance? Right? Can I have that deep feeling, but do I have the emotional intelligence to still listen to something that's opposite or different from that, or polarized and different? In worst case scenario, I can walk away still holding my opinion, even if we have to agree or disagree. Or I can be vulnerable and say, hey, I was wrong. Or hey, you taught me something. Or hey, you added something on to my repertoire. Or is it just the arrogance? We arrive in every conversation, end all, be all. Our accolades mean that, hey, I'm an expert on this and things of that sort. And so any disagreement, I have to dispel you. I have to put you down. All right. I have to crap on you. I have to demean you to continue the feeling of elevating myself up because, hey, you can't tell me nothing. So it's almost like my opinions have become my facts. So keep that in mind, the difference between conviction and arrogance. So I want to ask you another question. And again, I want to thank you guys for joining in Jay's Corner. We're talking about you're being played, how the outrage economy is destroying our relationships. We're easily moving past friends and family members and associates, thinking, well, something wrong with them simply because they disagree or they have different beliefs, or simply because we dispel and become or made our identity our opinions, right? So it's destroying a lot of meaningful relationships on the simple fact, hey, if there's a disagreement or you think that way, hey, we're throwing people away simply because they look differently, talk differently, or think differently than us. And so we've been kind of talking about that, but now I want to ask another question. And again, drop your answers in the comments. I really do want to hear from you guys. But think about this. Have you ever tried to resolve a conflict with someone, and no matter what compromise you offer, they just keep moving the goalposts? You even reach across the aisle and try, okay, I can see that. I can understand that. Or, hey, I see the nuance in that. And no matter what you try to do to meet common ground, they keep moving the goalposts because it's all or none. This happens because some people don't want solutions. And I think that's something here recently I had to learn myself, which again, we'll talk about it here in a minute. I'm the type of person I usually arrive in conversations welcoming difference of opinion because I just happen to be a guy. I love learning different things. I don't have to identify, I don't have to adopt it or put it in my value system, but I just like learning new ways that people think and how they arrive at certain decisions, right? But at the end of the day, you have to be careful and be able to recognize when some people allude to wanting solutions, and really what they're wanting is a platform to prove themselves to you. In oriented mindsets, there is a give and take. There is a teaching. Like I said, there is a listener and a speaker. Someone's reciprocating, someone's listening. There is an ongoing, reciprocated, beautiful process. If someone just want an audience and dictate, then that means the other person almost has to be like a college student, just be quiet, because now you have an authoritarian or someone who knows everything, and you're supposed to just sit there and just learn, right? You're supposed to sit there and learn, throw away everything you know, and you're not supposed to ask any questions. You're supposed to just literally take what that person says and change who you are. And so a lot of times we invest in conversation thinking that we're trying to, even in relationships, hey, one person's trying to get a solution. Now, I want to be right. See, what happens is really what some people want is a villain. Because think about it, if they have a villain, they get to cast themselves as a hero in their own movie in that conversation. See, this is not an opportunity to sit down and talk nuance and talk solutions and talk big ideals. No, someone has to be wrong, because who don't love being the hero, the person who shows up, the smartest person in the room, the best ideas, all the knowledge, the perfect resume, and let me show you how much better than I am. So all those other things go out the door, and that's why at the top of the conversation, this podcast, I asked, how many of us have had conversations with people who disagree with? Because if at the end of that conversation it was about right and wrong, good and bad, well, why does someone have to be a villain, right? Why does someone have to be a hero, right? Like, we can walk away believing what we want to, but again, that's the danger of us identifying as our opinions instead of being able to objectively have an opinion. So just be careful of that. Like I said, does this person or these people want a true solution where there will be nuanced conversation, both sides will be heard? Ultimately, it's not about who's right or wrong, but let's get the best idea in the room. Or does this person really want you to be a villain because it strokes their ego to be the hero or the person that's right, or hey, I taught you something, or whatever analogy you want to use? I'm coming to find out, even as much as last night, man, like those conversations are draining. They take out of you. And if I'm transparent, man, it makes me kind of feel like doofus, so to speak. Like, you wasted all that time for what? Like, you should have known better. And so, as I said from the top of the conversation, that's something I'm trying to identify, even in my growth and maturity. I want to identify those conversations where we're talking solution. Even if we got to table it, even if we agree to disagree, but man, we don't walk away. Someone's got to be right, someone's got to be wrong, or you got to be the villain. And like I said, you have to start disrespecting people. So, with that being said, understand the difference between solution oriented and villain hero capacity when you're having conversations. Because a lot of times you can save a lot of extra talking energy and effort. And I'm guilty of this. Man, don't, the word says don't throw your pearls to swine. Don't waste your time genuinely trying to create a solution or even get understanding to someone who's committed to themselves and to themselves being heard. So I want to ask you another question. Some people may call it a different question. And as I said again, drop your comments in the comment section, or if you want to inbox me. But when I ask this question here, I want you to let it sit heavy in the room for a second. Right? Like, you don't have to answer it with the first thought that comes to your mind. And then I want you to also hold up that imaginary proverbial window. That proverbial mirror when I ask this question. Do you want the truth or do you just want confirmation? Do you want the truth or do you just want confirmation? When you engage in a conversation with someone, are you really seeking the truth? Or did you arrive already believing I have the truth? I just want you to confirm or agree with me. Really think about that. Are you looking to actually solve the problem or get an understanding of the difference of opinion? Or are you just looking for a meme that you can repost to prove that you were right all along? Are you just looking for a platform or a moment in conversation to beat on your chest? Hey, I did this and that, I did this and that, and I got this going on and whatnot. And hey, I just want you to stroke my ego. Solution oriented or ego? Really think about those. Like I said, let those sit with you for a minute. Be transparent and hold that proverbial mirror up to you and ask yourself, what's your agenda? Do I really want the truth of the matter? I can still have my opinion about this, but when I engage in this conversation, if so happen this other person has information that objectively makes me challenge what I'm believing, if the ultimate goal is the truth, then that's the beauty of having an opinion that's objective and you are not identifying yourself as the opinion itself, because now it's as if the person is asking you to change yourself. So now it becomes more personal and the conversation becomes more personal. So do you want the truth or do you just want confirmation? Are you looking for a solution or you just need something you can repost, rebrand, or qualify to drill down the ego that you're using? Now, keeping this my master life coach hat on, I want to transition into a subject matter, man, that kind of really laid the foundation of why this topic is important. You're being played how the outrage economy is destroying our relationships. I want to talk to you guys about the mental health cost of constant outrage. Those who know me know I'm very passionate about mental wellness, our mental health. I do believe that we show up in spaces to where we do not have enough energy and time to really check in on our mental well-being. And I think that we don't realize that this topic that I'm talking about, there is a real cost. While we're worried about winning the argument, proving when I'm right, throwing up my accolades, I think a lot of time we don't understand that there is a mental cost to just a constant outrage of not having civil conversation, not having nuanced conversation to where we can talk about our difference of opinions, but just making it so personal. I've learned in the years of working with people, working with clients, trying to help them navigate their internal worlds, I've noticed a devastating trend when I go back and just think about some of the people I've worked with. Most people don't fail to do the work because they don't want to. There is a lot of it out there, but I digress. But what I've realized, a lot of people are completely exhausted. This fake outrage defending and hold up all my wait a minute, in it comes and let me go pull all my trophies out and let me go pull out all my accolades. Like every conversation, anytime I feel like there's a threat, anytime I feel like there's a fear, anytime I feel like there is something threatening my well-being or my ability to be or my ability to think, I got to go grab all these things. And look, I went to college, I went to school, and I got. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the show. Check out my latest book, The Mental Clarity Reset for Men, and also Think Better to Be Better. Get your copies on Amazon today. This and look what I got going on. And every time, and now you put that stuff back up in the closet. Then the next conversation coming, let me go. Man, that is honestly exhausting. And I've seen people in couples, in marriages, relationships, in any relationship, parent, child, where they have attempted to have conversations, but they're completely exhausted with this fake outrage of trying to prove who they are because their opinions have become their identity. They're no longer something that they can objectively talk about. And so I've learned that a lot of people, man, even after you settle the smoke, they're completely exhausted. And there is a massive biological and mental health cost to this constant outrage. Chronic anger literally rewires the brain. When you can start off having just a normal conversation, and if just the threat of a different conversation causes you to go straight from normalcy to anger, that's a chronic anger in that space, literally rewiring your brain. It's no longer a conversation anymore. And what happens, this anger floods your nervous system with cortisol. You're carrying, it's like you're carrying this baseline low grade trauma, and you're trying to have a nuanced conversation. But now, unfortunately, when we talk about where else does this affect us, now we take that mindset into our workplace, into our parenting, into our relationships, and unfortunately into our romantic relationships. It's a fight. Anything that challenges me, anything that in my mind, when it goes against what I think and believe, I gotta fight. And here I go, I gotta go pick all this stuff up, and I gotta keep defending myself when it's not even about defending yourself. It's just, it's okay if that person has a different opinion. You know, it's just like listening to a song and in the first 3 words, I don't like that song. It's okay to finish listening to the song. And if at the end of that song, you still believe or have the feeling that you don't like the song, that's okay too. But can you formulate a true feeling about something if you haven't literally heard it through? And that's what happens. Like I said, this low-grade trauma from this chronic anger, it becomes validated. That's what it's all about. It's not about solution oriented. We talked about that earlier. And so now I take that mindset into my workplace when it comes to my supervisor. Any constructive criticism, I have to fix it in my mind that they're attacking me. And then I'm going to respond accordingly. In parenting, the child on this, they must got to be, even kids. My parents don't understand. So it's like more of an attack in showing up. And like I said, unfortunately, in our families and in our romantic relationships, where there is an opportunity for us to get to know our mate or our a loved one in a different way while still having our beliefs, our values. Okay, I can respect that. Like the title of the podcast said, it's the strong relationship. We throw people away simply because they don't drop all their beliefs and completely allow me to put in their mind what I believe in. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the show. Check out my latest book, The Mental Clarity Reset for Men, and also Think Better to Be Better. Get your copies on Amazon today. Here's a core coaching truth. I was doing my notes that I want to share with you guys. Anger is always a secondary emotion because it usually acts as the bodyguard for something else. There's usually an underlying issue that generate and manufactures and sometimes even justify the emotion. Usually it's protecting fear, sadness, or a deep feeling of being misunderstood. And this is where we as Black males is literally killing us. It's literally killing us with this chronic stress and chronic depression and this anger that we display, and we got to continue holding all this on our sleeves because some of us refuse to do the work and get to the underlying issue. See, we know how to use that anger. We're not a weapon. Unfortunately, sometimes we identify that as being a man. So anybody or anything that doesn't display that anger the way we do, now that's not even being a man to certain people. So sometimes we become complicit with the anger. So it's not even about a conflict resolution with the other person. I came up to a resolution and resolved within myself that this anger is serving a good person, even if it's just to the point I identify myself as a man. And so I say to my brothers that are listening to this, man, we have to change that narrative. If we're protecting fear, man, we have to be vulnerable and talk about that fear. If we're sad, we have to be vulnerable because that's a real feeling and talk about that sadness. And if we have a deep feeling of being misunderstood, which is something I drastically suffered from, and even to this day, transparent moments still do, then we need to start surrounding ourselves. And like my therapist told me, go find your tribe to people who not just agree with you, but they are willing to understand. They are willing to forge a relationship with you based on understanding you and not being complicit and benefiting from misunderstanding you. There are some relationships where people hold close to you simply because you validate, you be the yes man. You allow them to put themselves above even the things you believe because they know you will downplay yourself or you'll make yourself small just to be in that company or just to fit in or whatever situation you want to say. So now you're in a toxic environment. And so we as Black men in this world that tells us that we can't turn off, can't be wrong, or hey, show emotion, but if you show emotion, then you looked up as a weak, and we're trying to figure this out and fit into one of these pockets, man, we're gonna have to shatter that glass and say, hey, if I'm dealing with fear, I'm fearful. I'm fearful of failure. I'm fearful of being a bad father, a bad mate, or whatever your situation is. But we're gonna have to own our truth, not because the world gives us permission to do it, but because it's the right thing to do. We're literally killing ourselves by holding this anger in and closely identifying it as being a man. All too often, with all the other things that we deal with in life as Black men, that one is self-inflicted, fellas. It may take work, it may take time, but that is one that we can control, and that's self-inflicted. So we can no longer use this outrage as a shield. So we don't have to feel underlying pain. And that's the unfortunate thing about it. We mask this outrage to where I don't have to deal with that real issue. That loss of a parent, that person who failed me, that person who cheated on me, that person who turned their back on me, or the one who walked away from me. We use this fake outrage to shield those real issues. And unfortunately, this become the mad. That's why we got to defend so much, right? But unfortunately, these things back behind here, the real issues, they become who we are and they're not getting any help. They're not getting any better. They're not being addressed. And so all of these things right here, we take out on the person with this outrage. And remember, the whole thing, I'm just trying to get to know you. I'm just sharing what I think. And so that's why that conversation is always put aside and people rush in, this is me. This is who I am. Well, we're no longer having a nuanced conversation. The point that I'm trying to get here is that we justify destroying real connection. Let me tell you something. Being right while losing your humanity, by losing your empathy and your family, is still losing in the end. And we have to ask ourselves and set a value system within us. In this day and age where social media, we feel like I don't talk on the internet, I don't really get it. But think about some that you see all the time. And again, if you all hit these buttons over and over, you start to subconsciously identify that emotion based on just the reaction of what you read. And I don't care if you're on a short amount of time or you scrolling all day, every day. That has an impact because now you stop dealing with these emotions or interpreting these emotions in real life and you start relegating them to what's on that 6x9 inch screen in your mind. And that's not only just pertaining to children. It's grown adults who has more of an identity with angry, love, and the whole 9 yards on a 6x9 inch screen more than if someone walked up to him in real life and said, hey, I love you. Hey, I like you. Hey, that makes me angry. And so it's not enough to look at social media and the other place. Well, since everybody else is doing that, I gotta be morally correct. Because again, even if that's the case, even if the idea or concept of being right while losing your ability to understand other human beings and respect other human beings, like I said, you're still losing in the end. Because the only human being you're gonna be able to be around is yes men. Those who believe like you, talk like you, everything you say will never be questioned. You're still losing in the end. So really understand, sometimes it's okay to stand alone. Sometimes you got to close that stuff up. I don't care if there's a billion people thinking that way. Can you objectively step back and say, okay, I may feel that way too, but it's not at the expense just because everybody else is thinking that way. I can justify why I believe this, why I actually feel this way. If not, just surround yourself with a bunch of yes men, because you're going to always attack and lash out on those who disagree with you. Thank you for joining Jay's Corner. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button. It's free, y'all. It really helps. I do thank those who have already subscribed, liked, commented, shared, favorited, whatever terminology, it's a million terminology you got here in social media. But I really do thank you guys for showing the love toward my work, seriously, whether it's a comment or whatever. And even like I said, the messages that come in, I do read them. And so I wanted to again take time to tell you guys I'm on all social media platforms. I'm on all podcast platforms. So wherever you listen at, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, if you watch us there, I greatly appreciate it. Go ahead and subscribe and make sure that you follow us to make sure that you keep abreast of everything we have coming out. You cannot build a healthy life on an unhealthy emotional diet. You hear me talk about it, emotional intelligence, all the time, something we all like to think we do. We all like to think we have it, but the reality is, when did we sit down and learn it? And we can no longer just keep dismissing it. We can no longer just be pushing the topic off the table because I don't want to expose myself. We can no longer continue to overstep what does practicing true emotional intelligence looks like. And then also realizing when we are functioning in low emotional intelligence, and the need to correct that before we engage in conversation with other people, to the detriment to where we're not destroying genuine relationships simply because we refuse to do the work. So I look at it like this: if you wake up, roll over, and scroll for 30 minutes, feeding your brain, think about it, outrage, fear, division, you've already forfeited your peace for that day. Something I literally had to catch myself. Oh, I do a good job at certain things. I follow positive things or what have you. But at the end of the day, I think we all can agree on social media, it's going to find its way to somebody's timeline. Somehow, some way, you're going to hear about more negative things, bad things, polarizing opinions. You got to think this because the other person is that. If you're just scrolling 30 minutes a day, and that's what you're consistently feeding your brain, you're only justifying this intake. You're justifying an emotional, unhealthy emotional diet. So you've been played before you even got out of bed. So now you're feeling a certain way. And like I said earlier, you're taking this feeling into these different aspects. And now here comes someone who thinks differently or is just challenging you to think better. And where do you think that energy goes to? Who do you think gets the bad deal, so to speak, part of what you ingested over that period of time? Because you can't talk back to the, well, I hope you're not talking back to the screen. But as soon as something comes that feels like a challenge, because you've now identified yourself as this, it's not the fact you feel this way, it's just an opinion. No, you identify yourself. And we find this a lot in politics. I identify as, it's good and bad on both sides, but that's why you can't have the conversation. Because now I am Democrat, or Republican, and Independent. So any nuanced conversation, oh, I'm gonna demean you. I gotta tear you down. Nothing you say is wrong, and anything that you say to try to give me clarity, you're attacking me. So I'm gonna attack you. The messy reality of trying. We've all been taught try, try again, right? But sometimes trying in life, in reality, can get messy. Let me be completely transparent with you all. Doing this work, all right, actually trying to break the cycle and build real alliances is messy. It is not like you just take a pill and you feeling well. It doesn't always end with a neat resolution and a hug. Sometimes you fall flat on your face. God knows that I do. I go to therapy every other Wednesday. And just when I think I've arrived, I've learned something different, I improved, I realize that there's different nuances. I still have somewhere far to go. So I want to be very transparent. That honesty is why a lot of people fail to do the work. It is easy to pacify, put up with, sweep it up under the rug, or double down than actually trying to break the cycle and build real alliances, real connections, instead of a button that you put. It takes real work. It takes trial and error. And like I said, it don't all the time end up in the happily ever after that you see like on the movies or what have you. Sometimes you fail and go again, just like a baby trying to take steps, hurting themselves. It's a part of that actual process. And there have been times where Coach Jay had just simply fell on his face. I'm just going to stay down here for a bit. I don't feel so hard. Like this one right here hurt. But guess what? You still have to get up. And so it's important to understand, man, when you're looking at your tribe, you're looking at your different relationships, it don't make them a bad person to where you condemn them. But the reality is some people choose not to do the work to better themselves because it's easier to be their own representative. So remember earlier I told you I wanted to tell you about a real life example of that this happened to me and some of my fellows, some of my frat brothers, and some of my partners a couple Thursdays ago got together, and we always try to, we hang out, do our cigar things, whatnot, talk sports. But what we also try to do, at least some of us, we try to make sure we create that safe space as grown men. We try to make sure that if there's some kind of going on, hey man, you still have a space to say that. And so the intention was good. Like I said, we want to create that safe space for me to get past the surface level stuff, or at least, hey, if you comfortable, we're not putting you on the spot. You don't have to say anything, but just a reality check in on another. Now, everything started out fine until one of my brothers spoke up and said, the point he was making, hey, I wasn't prepared to go in depth. I just kind of I thought this was just us socializing, taking it live, very surface level, right? He just thought we were just gonna shoot the breeze, talk about sports, just usual casual stuff. But the point that I'm getting at is that I challenged him on that mindset. What I shared with him is that as we mature, man, we have to talk about more than just the glory days. Nothing wrong with it. I've been there, done that, wrote the book about it. But we have to start talking about more than the glory days and these, I call them low-hanging fruit topics, because if we don't, we never truly know who we are today. Calling each other frat brothers, calling each other friends simply because of the time. But do I really know what you're dealing with today? Do you feel comfortable that as you call me friend, frat brother, Masonic brother, when life happened, do you find yourself protecting it and hiding it from me to keep up an image because you feel you can't share that information? Are you protecting the mindset that, hey, I'm not supposed to have problems because I'm the one everybody's supposed to go to? The only thing you're doing is creating an environment where you can shoot the ears, few laughs, giggles, tell a few lies, but there's no quality in that. And unfortunately, you become strangers that have just known each other for a long time. You know nothing about the person who they are today. And so we had a nuanced conversation, and that's why I said last night we eventually had a good conversation. We understood where each other was coming from, different opinions, but we was allowed to have it. No, I'm not saying it was anything wrong with it. We're going to continue to engage and bond, and nothing wrong with talking about the glory days, things of that sort. But we also want to make sure that we're understanding who we are today, and not taking a missed opportunity. And Lord forbid something happened to us, and we don't know about it. We didn't even know that version of each other while calling each other frat brother and my sonny brother and so on and so forth. And so I think that was a great example of how, and that's why I said shout out to Pat Briscoe. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind me shouting him out, and my frat brother and my Masonic brother, because we was able to recap that last night. That no, that was a perfect example where we had different opinions and approaches, but we was able to talk about them. And in this case, we found value in both. It wasn't the fact that either one of us was saying anything wrong or meant anything malicious, but we didn't allow that opinion to identify to ourselves, because his point was, hey man, I want to make sure I didn't offend you. I'm like, you didn't offend me, you gave me your opinion. But again, I thought that was high emotionally intelligent of him to say that. And so I wanted to share that as a great example of not allowing this outrage economy destroy what was a real friendship. You know, I've been knowing Pat since he came to college. Players and brought him into the greatest fraternity in the world, Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and then he eventually became my Masonic brother. We could have allowed that opportunity to throw away that real, genuine friendship, all because we chose to show up as identifying with our emotions instead of just bringing our opinions to each other. And so we had a great conversation with that. Question: how many times have we seen this happen? Okay. A real life crisis hits, a brother goes under, or a sister, you know, whether that's fraternal, friend, or whoever you call brother, sister, and we're all sitting around at the hospital, unfortunately, sometime the funeral home, or at someone's home, and you hear someone say, man, I had no idea what he or she was dealing with. We got family members, we got friends, frat brothers, sorority sisters, Masonic brother. We got all these titles that suggest we have a relationship that's deeper than the average relationship. We hold true, we defend these bonds, brother, sister, auntie, cousin, mother, frat brother, all these titles that suggest I know, or at least I should know that person deeper than the actual person. Talk to them every day, hang around, smile, cigar lounge, whatever your thing is. Hey, we do that consistently. But when life, unfortunately, life, how many of us found ourselves in a situation, in a hospital room, in an elderly folks' home, or unfortunately at a funeral, or someone's home at a repast, and you hear the saying, or you are the one who said, man, I had no idea he was, man, I didn't know she was going through. We didn't know because we kept choosing the comfort of talking about the same low level thing over the courage of asking about the reality of who they are today. That's why we didn't know. We just kind of allowed the conversation, the relationship get on repeat. What's comfortable, what's in common. We avoided those things that's going to grow us, that's going to stretch us. We avoid those things like me and my frat was talking last night, those things that I'm fearful that may expose me. It may make them look at me in a different way. So what we do, we play the game. Same thing. Say the same thing. That's why that happened. We never give ourselves a chance to get in the new, ladies and gentlemen, until it's unfortunately too late. And if you take nothing from this podcast, that's when I am trying to change. That's literally why I'm taking the time and I do these podcasts. It's not enough for us to just talk about it, feel some type of way, then we move on to the next, and we just sit around and wait until a tragedy or trauma knocks on our door. And then even then, we're still trying to use the same outdated or wrong ideologies to handle it because we're worried about people instead of just really knowing people. And the only way you're going to truthfully know a person It's less you understand them and allow them to express who they are, not as an indictment of they got to believe everything you believe in, feel everything you feel, say everything you say, but get to know them objectively and give them a platform where they feel they can be okay with you. So when life happens, just maybe, am I ringing the town bell and letting everybody know what I'm going through? No, but at least someone in the circle I feel comfortable with, not only just kicking it with, not only just smoking cigars, hanging out, cocktails with, but man, when life hits the fan, I feel comfortable that I can pick up this phone and not only just tell you because of a title of a frat brother, whatever analogy you want to use, but because I think you truthfully care. Because I truthfully think that you will treat that information in the spirit in which I give you. Because I feel that you would do the right thing about what I just shared with you. And we can share this actual safe space. Right? So eventually in that situation that I talked about earlier with me and my friends, some of the guys got it. But the goal wasn't to even get everyone there just to agree because that's how I felt. All right. Goes back to that point. It was okay if Pat would have still felt some type of way, right? Or what have you. That's okay. That wasn't an attack to me and how I felt. I still would have walked away feeling, hey, I want to be able to have conversation and, talk, you know, reminisce and all that and have fun with that. But I also want to incorporate an opportunity where we can kind of get to know each other better. I would have still walked away with that being my opinion and being how I felt, right? So it wasn't the fact that there was a coercion and, hey, Pat got to be this bad person because he didn't see it the way I laid it out or suggested it at first. No, it just he had a different opinion. Just so in this case, we was able to have the conversation, realize each other's point of view and move on, right? So as a master life coach, I had to take a hard look at myself in the mirror. And this is why I was telling you about the work is still ongoing. I'm on this podcast sharing information with you guys, but the personal work in reality is still going. I had to take a hard look at myself in the mirror. There's this concept called holding space and meeting people where they are. Holding space, and probably the ones that we are more familiar with, meeting people where they are. And a lot of times we misinterpret that based on where we're at. So really we want people to come up to us, right? But when I'm talking about the concept of meeting people where they are, and I had to ask myself, did I do that? Or did I just try to force a breakthrough on my own timeline? Hey, in this moment of time, this is what I want to talk about. And I had to ask myself that. I had to reflect on that. I wanted the connection, but I didn't want to demand it. Because I realized that if I demanded it, that's not being an ally. That's pushing an agenda. And I go back again. That's why I asked in the beginning of the conversation, when was the last time you had a conversation with someone that you had a disagreement? How did it go? Somewhere along the way, if we've forgotten that we're allies in this thing, 9 times out of 10, someone has bailed on the topic in the conversation, and now they're just pushing their agenda. I don't believe in this, so I don't want you to believe in this. So everything's going to be coerced and manipulated to try to get an agreement of based on a personal agenda than it really is a personal understanding of 2 or more people in that conversation. Being an ally isn't about perfect execution. It's not all a none. There is nuance. It's about the attempt. Even if Pat and them didn't want to talk about it, the attempt of creating a safe space with people that I care about was had. Didn't make it have perfect. Didn't mean that everyone had to buy into it and, hey, we're going to do this. But I could set myself at peace because it was all about the attempt, not the domain, not the cursing someone out because they felt differently or if they didn't see things my way. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to normalize the struggle of trying to connect, messing up, and taking responsibility and trying again. So that's why I said it's a process. Trying to connect, potentially getting it wrong, messing up, taking responsibility, and trying again is a continual process that will continue to be ongoing and ongoing until we can act and get it right. And I can tell you right now, there is no time frame on that. There's no hourglass that's on that. Think about this. Have you ever tried to have a deep conversation and it completely backfired? You lined it up, you knew what you wanted to say, you had an idea of where you want the conversation to go, and it just backfired. I know I have. Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about that messy middle, right? You don't have to go into the details. Don't air nobody's laundry out on social media. But talk to me about a time where you tried to have a deeper, serious conversation, and man, it's like it did not go the way that it played out in your head. Man, as we cross this threshold again, thank you guys for kind of holding the line with me here. You're being played how the outrage economy is destroying real relationships. As we've lifted this plane up, man, we've spent some time in the sky. Now we want to kind of land this plane. I want to kind of turn you guys' attention to a great question that will be ongoing also. Are we losing the ability to be allies? I think everyone wants someone to be on their side, to understand them, to be there for them, to listen to them. But do we realize when we have positioned ourselves or become the person where others are unable to be our ally? So how do we break that design? How do we stop being played? It brings me back to the whole core mission of Jay's Corner. We have to not only learn how to be allies again, ladies and gentlemen, we have to learn how to value that, put more value in stock into someone who is truly performing consistently as your ally. How are you treating it, and more importantly, how are you cultivating it? We have to relearn the profound difference between a disagreement and hatred. Again, opinions out, open, objective. Worst case scenario, that's a disagreement. If we've identified ourselves with our emotions, then anything constructively said about that opinion is going to come across as hate. Disagreement is a healthy requirement for a functioning society. We will not always agree. There is no situation, no space where you will always 100% to get everybody in that space to disagree. So there are times where it is healthy. As a matter of fact, there is time I would go even further to say it is a healthy requirement in your tribes to have disagreement for a functioning society. But hatred is a poison that rots it from the inside out. You have ulterior feelings about this person, just kind of play along. But you studied building resentment for this person. So when those changes or different opinions come out, you use that as an opportune time to lash out and belittle. And like we always say what you was really feeling, right? And that's how those friendships, although they had all this time and effort, we did all these good things when we were in agreement with each other. That's why they can quickly end, because it never was an ally in the first place. I was really just holding it in what I really felt and thought about you and my envy of you. And you just gave me an opportunity. And so when the disagreement becomes hatred, it's nothing you can do but get out of there, man. There's not a relationship to be saved. That's more of a space to have recognized when a relationship that was built on false pretenses were never there in the first place. You all, the ultimate antidote to outrage is curiosity. That's why we have opinions. If you think that and I disagree with that, doesn't make any sense. The ultimate antidote to stop this fake outrage is curiosity. In coaching, we rely on powerful questions. Simple term, but there's a such thing called powerful question. When someone says something that triggers you, instead of attacking, what if you took a breath and just said, tell me more about how you came to that conclusion? And not in a sarcastic way. That is a powerful question, because now you release this animosity that you have waiting on the other side of that actual door as soon as that person opens up. But it becomes a powerful question, because here's the thing. I still get to keep my feeling, but if I'm truthful and honest, and if the goal is really to understand, I've now, instead of hijacking that conversation, I'm now giving the person who gave me their opinion an opportunity to give me greater clarity. See what I did there? I had to do the work first, and then I have to give this person permission that if they continue to unpack, I had to do the work first to make sure that in the event if this is something I disagree with, I won't take it as if it personally happened to me. They're just talking about the opinion over here. So that question of tell me more, could you tell me more about how you came to that conclusion? That's a powerful question. And quite frankly, that's going to show you, to me, that's going to show you where the person stands. But if you can't answer that question with emotional intelligence, we just here to argue. Or like we said earlier, we just here to push that agenda. Well, curiosity disarms the ego. And as much as we may say we have it under control, as a human being, sometimes our ego can run amok. And the thing that I love about curiosity, that it disarms it. Because it's okay to recognize, as a writer, as a poet, as a podcaster, there's something that my ego tells me I'm an expert on. That's a healthy sense of ego. There's nothing wrong with that. But someone else's curiosity should not indict that to the point where I feel I have to defend that in my knowledge and my accolades and what have you, and not allow me to disarm my ego, and at the very least satisfy their curiosity, be able to answer questions, be able to have nuanced conversation about the things that they may disagree with or see differently than which I do. And hear me clearly also on this point. Listening is not validation. Listening is not surrender. You can actually hold space, fully understand someone's perspective, and still 100% disagree with them. Everything is not all or none, fight or flee. It is okay to be able to listen and still hold your own opinion. And I think a lot of times, man, we get it misconstrued that to understand is to agree. No, to understand is to hopefully understand so that if and when this situation happens again, you don't get the same results. But subconsciously, don't justify not listening and not wanting to hold a space in a difference of opinion as meaning that it's all or none. I got to either choose my way, my thoughts, or the other person. That's completely false. And I think a lot of times subconsciously, we bring that bad ideology into the conversation. Like I said earlier, the conversation quit being had. Ultimately, being an ally means I look across the table and I don't see an avatar. I don't see a political party. I see a human being whose life experiences led them to their conclusion. Whether I agree with it or not, whether that's good or bad, I see a human being just like myself whose life experiences led them to their conclusion exactly the same way my life experiences led me to mine. In the same way that I want to be listened to and I want to be understood, because I see that human being, not an avatar I see on social media, not a political party they're feeling with, not what religious belief they believe with, but I see a human being. And but simply because I know I want the same thing and I feel I deserve the same thing, I'm willing to genuinely give it, even if it means that I have to reach across the aisle. I want to leave you guys with this. The goal of this life isn't to eliminate disagreement. If you're trying to do that, I can tell you right now that you've already failed. The goal is to stop letting disagreement eliminate our humanity. It's allowing us to call each other bitter names, act negatively, take lies, condemn, talk about family members, talk about children. And unfortunately, a lot of this is being taught about the guys in the White House. And it's just trickling on down. And so it's subconscious give us permission. Like, we've gotten so away from decency and humanity. That's the ultimate goal. Just because someone disagree with you, think different than you, worship differently than you, live a lifestyle different than you, they are still humans. And so hopefully our goal get away from more trying to prove and convert than understanding, at the very least, respecting the humanity in everybody. Normally, this is the part of the podcast where I would tell you to like, share, and host, subscribe. I've been doing it all throughout. But I'm going to pivot a little bit today. Today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a coaching assignment to those who want to further this conversation. I'm going to give you a challenge of the week. I'm going to leave you with this. I want you to have one curious, non-combative conversation with someone you usually avoid or someone you strongly disagree with. Just choose someone that you would normally, I'm not going to have that conversation, or that you've just been curious about. Maybe you've been nervous, reluctant, whatever reason. And if they agree, if and when they agree to have this conversation with you, I want you to focus on a couple of things. Don't try to win. Don't try to convince them of anything. Remember we talk about powerful questions? Just ask questions. Then listen and be aggressively curious, to genuinely want to invest and be in that moment to understand what they're saying, not necessarily agree with it. Now, once you do that, come back to this video and report in the comments how it went. Tell me what shifted in the room when you chose curiosity over conflict. And remember, progress doesn't happen when everyone thinks alike. So I'm not saying go into it because these things, Coach Jay said this, if it don't turn out right, oh man, no. Progress doesn't happen when everyone thinks alike. Progress usually happens when people who think completely different decide they're still on the same team. So remember, as I always say, we're allies in this thing called life. Even when our differences, we're allies, we're not adversaries. Look, you guys, this has been another episode of Jay's Corner. I want to thank you guys for hanging out here in Jay's Corner. Take care of your mind this week. Take care of each other. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jay's Corner. You guys take care.